The problem is not so much that people are uneducated, but they're educated just enough to believe themselves to be smart, but not so much as to question what they've been taught. That quote is unattributed, but I am the Great Baldini, and these are unintended consequences. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're joining us from. We're glad you're here for episode 11 of Unintended Consequences, where the music is original, the content is organic, and the possibilities are endless. Stay with us for more Unintended Consequences. Well, alrighty then. It's been quite a morning here at the little house on the prairie. Oh dear. Yeah. So I got a new computer finally. Thank you so much to everybody who has contributed to that, and I'll join in just real quick. I want to thank everybody: Meg Z, Mark R, Mark W, Hope, Rose 777, ZP Investigations, Justin, Captain Nemo, and Kevin. We got a total contribution of and Jenny. Thank you as well. Total of 580 toward, let's see, the computer was about 1,500. I got another monitor for about 300. And I'll tell you the story about that. About 200 more I need to spend in software. So a total of about $2,000. All told, that's going out there. So, yeah. So anyway, I always was going to put my own money toward it. It's not a big deal there, but just wanted to say thank you to everybody who joined. So we got that going for us, which is nice. Anyway, so I tried to set it up again stupidly because as a professional, I would tell anyone never change your system right before a show. Right, you do that in between and test everything. Well, I was like, I've been doing this forever, so I can do it. Well, in switching files over and that sort of stuff. Yeah, as it turns out, I didn't have all the files I needed. It was just retarded. And then, sorry if that word offends you. I didn't mean to, harsh anybody there. Anyway, so yeah, so we got that going for us, which is nice. So anyway, quickly, the new computer. So just again, stay, accountable to everybody who's been donating. I appreciate everybody who did. So this is kind of, you can see the system here. It's a i7 7700 running about 4.2. So there's 8 logical processors. If you're, a geek like me and you're into this stuff. So it's got an SSD as well as a 2 terabyte hard drive, and the graphics card was what was the big deal. It's a GTX 1080 Ti with 11 gig of memory on that. So that will allow me to render video, and so we can start doing actual videos, and I can set up the Patreon thing and do subscriber videos and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm a total dork, Rose. Absolutely. I have never claimed to be anything else. Anyway, so that we have that going for us, which is nice. And then don't forget again, before I forget, tomorrow we're doing our new series with Wayne McCroy, which is Sola Scriptura. It's going to be episode 2, but he can't join me until the evening, so we're going to do that at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. But I'm going to do the morning stream at 7 o'clock, just a brief thing to announce and make sure that everybody comes in at the nighttime when Wayne can come, and to keep it kind of consistent. So you can join me twice tomorrow. We'll do that. And of course, every Tuesday and Thursday morning, early, 6 a.m. on the West Coast and 9 a.m. on the East Coast, the Poppycock Report with Rose 777 on her channel. And I'll put that in the show description once this video renders. I should have put it in before. So we got that going for us, which again is nice. This morning we have a super awesome guest, and this is a guy that I met on Facebook, Deezy, right? Cordell, Deezy, Cordeezy, Tom. Yeah, right on. Man, this guy is all over the place, and I think you're really going to enjoy our conversation this morning. I've noticed as he's done, this guy. But I don't really have enough to say about him. He's been doing what I don't. I often say that I don't choose not to play chess with pigeons because they inevitably just squawk and knock over all the pieces and shit all over the board and flap away and claim victory. I just like I ain't got time for that, right? No, Deezy he's the guy that's getting out there and planting seeds, right? And he doesn't mess around with folks either, but he plants the seeds and is trying to wake people up, which is exactly what we're talking about here at Unintended Consequences and the Awakening Project. And so Tom and I have gotten to know each other over time, and I'll just start calling him Deezy now because it's making me dizzy. Anyway, welcome, Deezy, and I'm super glad that you're here this morning. Thanks for taking time with us.
Hey man, thank you, Baldini, man. Peace to the family in the chat. Um, Dude, it's so funny that you said dizzy and dizzy, man, because it's a whole thing, man. I try to make people dizzy.
Set them off their feet, man. All right. So, well, first, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you're doing, and then we'll kind of go through your own awakening process.
Okay, well, yeah, my name is Cordell. I go by Cordeezy Time on Facebook, and I'm 27. I'm from the Twin Cities, and I'm a young African American male in the Twin Cities. So I grew up in the inner city, so I faced a lot of, the disparities and racial prejudices of stuff. But I always
Well,
saw through
now I
that.
have a friend who's from Johannesburg, and he's almost as white as I am, and he says he's an African American.
Oh, see, and that's something we're gonna get into too,
Okay.
Baldini, because
Uh,
because it's so hard for me to describe myself when I thought about what I should say. You know what I mean? I didn't even want to use the term African American because
I was surprised you did because I was like, I don't think of you that. I just think of you as a guy, right? I mean, you're like one of the Wake tribe.
yeah,
I mean, I suppose there is something to that in that most of our interaction is virtual, right, over the internet. But
yeah.
even watching you on Rogue Ways with Lindsay Sharman, I mean, you got more melanin than me, and you got a better tan. Other than that, I mean,
Yeah,
you're
and
like a
that's
younger
and
version of me. So I don't know. We'll get to it. I'm sure. I had to make that joke that I got a friend from Johannesburg in South Africa, right? And he's like, I'm an African American. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
that's totally appropriate, and I appreciate you calling me out on that because it just gets into like how to describe ourselves, and that's always something hard, and that's something I try to step away from. But
Oh,
we're
whenever
gonna
you make sure that people are asking about Twin Cities, and I know that there's Twin Cities in different places. There's Tri Cities here in Eastern Washington, and so Twin Cities, you're right there. We're all in the heart of where all this Pink Floyd stuff was happening, huh?
Oh yeah, yep. And we had an event yesterday right there for our Juneteenth. We had an event right on the same block because I'm a board member for this organization called Say Tool, and our office is right where the George Floyd incident happened.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's a whole thing. We're going to get into
Yeah,
that
we'll get
too.
into that too. Okay. Again, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just, I got to jump in there because I know that you don't usually describe yourself that way. I was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? But yeah, I get it. You got to describe it. You got to do something that people understand. The same way we talk about history and we don't accept that historical timeline. We have to have sort of a tangent point where everybody understands. So I get it.
Ex-
Keep going. Yep. All right.
And
So
that
you're
and that
27. You're in Minneapolis. Born and raised there.
born and raised,
Okay.
and I could say the Twin Cities because I bounced between St. Paul and
Hmm.
Minneapolis, and St. Paul is an interesting city as well. I always wondered why it was called St. Paul. It was called Pig's Eye before that, which is funny. But yeah, so I was awake. My little awakening, like I call myself an alchemist, but it was just going through different trials and tribulations. Like it was nothing like I wasn't in an order or I wasn't in a fraternity. Like I went through it the hard way.
Yeah. So what? When did this start? You're 27 now. So when did this start?
I like to cite my awakening experience in 2012.
That's fairly common for a lot of people. And what was kind of the triggering incident?
I honestly, it was hard for me to say because I was with a lot of my friends, and I mean, it was a time where we were partying and like a lot of mushrooms and stuff came into play. So there was that, but there I feel like there was a huge wave shift.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There was a huge wave shift, and it was completely random because we went from eating Burger King to just going to like co-ops and making our own soap. And
Wow.
like this is when I was first introduced to Alex Jones and things like that. So I was hearing all type of different alternative perspectives, and it was like a complete shift, man. And it was right around the time where that 2012 thing was going on.
Sure. And so this was, if I'm hearing you right, and I'm going to kind of recap this. Something happened. It sort of like flipped a switch, and the rest of it was just filling in the blanks. Like you just saw it a different way, and now it was just a matter of getting the information you needed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right.
Cool. All right. So that helps me better understand. And so, what about people around you? Brothers, sisters, parents, siblings, cousins, friends? Did anybody else around you? You said we. So I assume that there was some people who joined you in these co-ops and dropping the Mickey D's. What? Tell me about that.
So my friends, my inner circle, I always manifested some quality people around me. And I believe in reincarnation, and I kind of believe that the people that are in your closest inner circle are the ones that you were in past lives with. So like my closest family, my mom moved, my grandma moved up here from New Orleans, so they're kind of deep into um the voodoo culture, but I
Right.
wasn't never exposed to it because as a male, it was always like seen as a female thing. And my grandfather had passed before I was even alive, but it was to my understanding that was a he was a Prince Hall Mason on both my dad and my mom's side. And I feel like that kind of skipped generations because my mom or dad never were practicing, and it kind of I feel like it transferred to me, like a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the drive that I have.
So just sort of like almost by, like genetic memory, just kind of pick things up and, like again, you feel like I know it's been described as it's a weird way to put it, but like an old soul compared to a younger soul. Like Rose 777's here, she often describes herself as a younger soul, right? She's kind of open and wide-eyed and loving things, and then people like me are more tired and worn out.
Yeah.
I've always have related to people much older than myself. So even when I was, a kid, even at 11, 12, I was hanging out with 20-year-olds, and they thought I was the same age, weirdly enough. So it sounds like similar for you.
Similar, yeah, most definitely. And I would go as far as to say that I had a mustache in fifth grade. So
Yeah, I
I
had a
mean,
full beard by the time I was in ninth grade, like full, right? So
full, yep.
yeah.
And I was I went to a military school in the ninth grade, and they made me shave it and stuff. But yeah, I had my full thing going on. It was
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah. So also surrounded by military. So we do have several, touchstone things. How about any artistic proclivities, music, or any of the arts?
I always loved music, and the type of music that I grew up on was like hip hop and rap music. But of course, I seen it as like, especially the mainstream rap music. It was kind of like really bad. I don't need to go to describe it, but you know what it is. So I listened to like underground rap,
Hmm.
which wasn't more it like the subject matter wasn't different, but it was more authentic and genuine, which was my main thing. Like I always thought to listen to something more authentic than the mainstream rappers that were out and promoting agendas and skinny jeans and all type of different things. So I kind of so there I just differentiated myself at a younger age because um, bef- I don't like GMOs now, and I kind of like see myself different than other people in my community that do, and just like listening to different music was my first step in that. So it kind of was like gradually and gradually I've removed myself from like the status quo of what my collective people accepted as acceptable, if that makes sense.
No, I got you. And then, so during this awakening process, so a small group of people around you, a fairly large group of people that kind of woke up at the
So
same time, or both?
it was it was mainly me, but it was mainly a small group of people because I kind of made them awaken with me, really. Like they kind of like stagnated and kind of strayed away from what was really going on. and it was due to their own journeys that they were honestly going through, which is no, harm to them. But I kind of like was the one that really went nose deep into it after like everything was all said and done, and after people were, you know, done doing what they were doing. I was like, well, hey, what you guys still remember about the law of attraction and how we got these chemtrails and all this and that,
Hmm.
like after being sobered up. So I was really pushing and really doing this research. And that was my first time like realizing that I wanted to be a teacher again, because I always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't want to teach, BS,
Right.
so I
The
stepped away.
indoctrination centers, right?
Yeah, and I graduated high school in 2011. So I was 19 at this point in 2012.
So, all right. So I knew we were going to kind of get here eventually, and so this is probably as fair a place as any to segue because it's part of the questions. You know, much of what's been going on in our, in the U.S. right now certainly has to do with what I feel is, mostly a media-driven narrative of what they call race relations, right?
Yeah.
So give you a little bit of background, right? I spent, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and so I didn't know too many people who didn't look a lot like I did, but we did have a few, and so I went to private school most of my life, and so the people that were different either were from another country, right? So we had some people from the islands, right, Barbados and that sort of stuff, as well as people from Asia, different places there, and so it didn't seem they all seemed the same to me, right? I mean, they might look a little bit different, but there was no difference in personality or culture. I'll put it that way, because we all kind of went to these small private schools, and then when the first year that I went to a public school was my just one year. I went to my sophomore year to a public high school because I wanted to play football, and was fairly good at it. And but there, that was in Texas. We'd moved to Texas by that point, and so I think the kind of the standard look at that, right, is that especially at that period of time, so this would have been the late 1970s, early 1980s, would have been, it was fairly redneck, and there was old Southern, look at sort of things. But my experience in going to school, and so it was, I would say, not exactly rural, but it was suburban, basically, sort of suburban, north central Texas. And so we had, I'd say, 30%, 28 to 30% of our high school was people of color. Maybe a little bit more if you count people of Hispanic origin, but not a lot there. But in our town, there was literally what was called like the other side of the tracks, right? Literally, there was a railroad tracks, and on the other side was where, and again, this is where I struggle to say, like, the African American community, the black community, color, like, it's just, I don't know how to put it, right? But here's the
Yeah.
thing: is that there was whatever segregation there was not institutional; it was cultural, and there wasn't any that I personally saw. There was a couple of redneck kids who their parents were kind of probably racist, and so they were a little bit, and that was on both sides. Right. So there was a couple
Yep.
of kids who didn't like people of other colors, but the rest of them, they mostly kept to their own little tribe, but that was cultural, and that was across the board, irrespective of color. So those in there was the cowboys, right? What we called shit kickers, and they had their own rodeo thing, right? Then you had the rocker kids, and they kind of did their stuff. They smoked pot and likely to smoke, and then you had the preppy kids, right? They their parents had more money, and they kind of did their thing, turned their collar up, and yes, Muffy, right? And they sort of played that role, and so it was cultural, irrespective of color. And everybody mixed it up pretty well. There was no, there was more fights between rockers and rednecks, right, than there were between anybody of any, race or color, by far. And I didn't notice personally any sort of race issues until I went to work in Dallas, and I encountered a few people who did not like me because of the color of my skin. Right, and that was a weird, a weird experience for me, especially because my background is primarily Cherokee Indian, right? I'm very pale, but I'm better than three-fourths Cherokee on both sides of my parents. But they didn't know that, right? At least on my mom's side, she didn't know that. And so I was curious when you're describing your people around you. First, if this is primarily people that look like you, or a mixture of things, and if your experience is sort of the same, that it has more to do with culture than race. I mean, curious about your experience because again, I wasn't in Minneapolis and I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, most definitely it was cultural. I mean, I feel like just how you alluded to like people being segregated and put in different places, it all goes involved with like energy lines and ley lines and stuff like that. So I believe that Minneapolis is one of like a big spiritual hub, or like it's like really, really spiritual. I don't know why, because there's like a lot of metaphysical shops here. So there's been people that I've been running into that like the people that I do run into are whether they're white, whether they're Asian, whether they're my friend from Jamaica, they all have been on their different journeys, but we've all met at this central point. And I always ask, why do people just come to Minnesota? Because we have it's very, very diverse here, like very. And it's just a central hub for spirituality. And we have like top Reiki masters and like tarot readers and just like everything. So the people that I've ran into my life have been just like I said, they've been born into it, and I feel like I've met them. Most of the time, I've met them in past lives, and I feel like we've had important roles, or we've done certain things, and we've built our friendship. But we also, like, there's the deep topics that we talk about, like normally on Facebook, is the stuff that they get. Like, I don't need to break it into their heads because they already know.
Okay.
And that's a tell there too.
Yeah, I've noticed. I follow your Facebook page, and again, you're putting up stuff multiple times a day, right? Just trying to wake people up and poke them a little bit. I like your style, right? You just go like, "Hey, check this out," right? And unapologetically, and like, "Hey, you go look for yourself," right? Don't listen to me. And that's one of the things I always like is people, like, don't listen to me, just like go look it up. But
Right.
I've noticed, people of every culture showing up there, which again, partly I like. I also follow D Marvel, right? Dara Marvel, who's also up here in the Pacific Northwest, and he seems a little more. Again, culturally focused on that group. Again, I don't know how to call it, right? Because people seem to be so easily offended about everything, right? And it's like, again, I think it would be. I think it would be I was not going to say irresponsible, but a little bit disingenuous to say colorblind, because I mean, it's not that we don't see it, right? But it has, to my experience has very much to do, with behavior and culture. And there are, again, excuse the expression, but what they used to call wiggers, right? Like white people who wanted to be part of black culture, right? They liked it and they wanted to get into rap and all that sort of stuff. And then, I'm sure you met what, again, empathetically is called like Oreos, right? Like darker skinned people from that community who, they want to learn to play golf and talk, hey, Reginald, man. And they get this really weird voice tone. It's like, what are you doing, right? Like, just be honest. But I've noticed that, again, it seems more, again, culturally driven. Rather than specifically racially driven, although there is, again, race seems to play a part of it. So again, clearly we probably had different experience because, I'm much lighter skinned. Although again, I went through every type of click possible, and so I didn't really 100% fit into any of them, right? My whole life, because they didn't like that I wasn't completely loyal to them. Right.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sure your experience as a young, I don't know, man of color. How do you want me to describe it? Because I know that there's going to be people who are upset because we look different from each other. You guys shouldn't even be talking, man. Well, again, I think that's bullshit. But anyway, what are you comfortable with? What's good for you?
We can use black.
Okay.
We can use black, and we can talk about why, normally we don't like the color black, because one, black, you look at your arm, black people aren't black, they're brown. But as well as in the legal system, legally on paper, black has no standing in law. So there's like a color code system.
Right. And Dred Scott, 3/5, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that whole thing. So when we get into like with people like or with groups like Black Lives Matter, when they're trying to fight for legal reasons and have everybody claim that they're black, well, you're just being counterproductive. So that's kind of why you don't normally like to associate ourselves with the word black. But like when we're not on talking about paper and we're not on like
yeah,
legal stuff, then it's, totally
it's
acceptable.
an easy way to describe it, right? No, I get it.
Yeah.
And besides that, the etymology of the word black actually literally means without color. And so in some places, blanco means white, right? So it depends.
Yeah.
It means bleached or without a lack of color. So the inference there is it could either be clear or blanco blank, that's you know what I mean, that's blank
Hmm.
in English. Blanco means white in Spanish, and then you've got negro in Spanish, black. It's weird, but the etymology of the word literally means kind of without color, and so it could go either way, blank, white, black. It's a weird thing, and I find interestingly, over time, again, history is such a weird thing to me because again it's been so misdescribed, and so it's difficult to know what you can trust and what you can't. You got to go to firsthand accounts, but clearly we've got the Moors. From my research, there's been again, darker skinned people who look a little bit different, all over the place, not just Africa, but like everywhere throughout
Yep.
all of history, right? You got these statues in South America, and they show, the Olmecs, and they show all like people that I don't know how to, again, black people bigger, like they got bigger nostrils and bigger lip, like, again, they look like they could have come from Africa, but they got where they're all over the place. So and there's very early, let's see, Martin Lidke, right, flat Earth British, right, he's been getting into kind of the mud flood Tartarian stuff, but all through history, right, he shows photographs again of people or early explorers to the Americas, and they encountered people that were both redheads like Norwegian, blondes again like Norwegian, people that look like they came from Africa, like giants, right, like everything. So
Even the Aborigines in Australia have blonde hair, right?
right, yeah, I know, and it's and again, Aboriginal. It's again, there's another etymology that's weird. Original and Aboriginal means not, right. So like, no,
Right.
we reject the fact that you say that you're the first people, even though their story goes back older than anybody else's that I know of in terms of culturally. So it's a strange thing, and again, as I observe these things, I notice that there are many people who get very, I don't know. See, even I'm cautious because again, I just don't want to offend anybody. I know me and you talking again. You don't care what I say. If I say, hey, you're a black guy or African American, even though we both know that you're not keen on the African thing because you don't know precisely where, right, or even for sure if it, right. So or black because you go, hey, I look at my arm, it's not black, it's brown, right. I'm pink, right. I'm not white. So
And then it gets and then it gets deeper too with the African American thing because there was this whole Dreamers Act and thing with Trump that African Americans were actually liable for deportation. So there was a whole fine print involved with
isn't
that
that
that was
crazy?
really. Yeah, and it's this whole word schematics. It's the whole reason is because we don't have our identity. It's so hard to know, what we are because we're accepting names and stuff from our oppressors. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
classifications.
Isn't that really true? No matter what you look like, right? Is that they've stolen our identity, whether I mean, from our history, and made us not understand who we are, and put labels on us. And I go, hey, labels are for soup cans, right? So I think it's a very interesting, to me, even fascinating, right? Is the programming that we've willingly accepted, and how far it is from what seems to be, insofar as I can tell, the actual truth of the matter, that everything is misdescribed. But I mean, I don't think you can look at least the history that we're familiar with, without seeing that those people who are, again, black or whatever, have been historically very oppressed in this country, certainly. I mean, other people too, the Irish and Asians, and there have been a lot of people, but a specific type of institutional oppression. Uh,
Yeah,
and
even slave, even the word slave was attributed to the Slavics. You know what I mean? Those were the
yeah, and
the
they're
word
white,
slave
right?
came from them.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So it's a weird misdirection, if you will. But as I say, looking at the history of our country, there is a particular, I don't know, brand of, and it does seem again to be driven by a social narrative, including predominantly the media. Again, before there was television, there was paper and books and pamphlets, this sort of things, songs, from the 18th and 19th century that put, again, we've mentioned the Dred Scott decision, even after, supposedly the freeing of slaves, that put the value of, black people at 3/5 of a person. I mean, you can't get much more obvious than that there are, there's people that want to hold folks down. How and certainly, we were told things supposedly changed, and Martin Luther King and all that sort of stuff. And again, all these driven narratives. You mentioned that there's a very diverse culture in Minneapolis. What's been your experience growing up in America, right, in Minneapolis, about people's feelings, toward one another? Did you get any overt racism there, or did you experience what some people call reverse racism, or those in the black community that disliked from the black Muslim view, the devil whitey, right, that put all people in a
Right.
category? What's been in your experience? What's your observation on that?
Well, with the Twin Cities, there's curiously a lot of duality here, and we have a thing called Minnesota nice, where yeah, we'll smile in your face, but we're not really that nice. Like as soon as you walk away, we'll talk shit about you. You know what I mean?
It's true of the South too. They just play it different. Well, bless their pointy little head. They're dumber than dirt, but right? Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is, and it's honestly the Twin Cities is like one of the top 15, I believe, the best cities to live in. I think there was like an article that said that, but also it's one of like the top 10 worst places for a black man. So there's a
Wow.
whole thing, and I have experienced racism with like cops and stuff. Like when I'm driving, a cop would like do like reverse and come
Yeah.
behind me, and just if I'm over in a suburb or whatever, things like that. But I feel like that's everywhere. But as far as systematic oppression, um, I believe that it's like who you know
Yeah.
and the people that you run into. And I've networked, and I've met like some cool ass, down to earth, like white folks, you know what I mean, that
Yeah.
really put me on game and like really shed the light on a lot of things. And like even this job I'm working now, like it's from a guy that I've known for like 10 years now. Shout out to my guy Chris, and we've been doing shows together. He put me on the first like hip hop show. He went to IPR, which is like a music production school here. And we kicked it, went to the studio, started recording music, and he showed me like a lot of cool things. So I experienced like white people aren't racist on that tip, but like there's a systematic racism that I will say that is real. But as far as people are only racist if they like watch the media or like soak up what they believe, I feel like. And that's my
Yeah.
interpretation on things. And I will break people when people talk to me, they know that I'm coming with authentic and genuinity, and they don't ever that racism stuff goes out the window. You know what I mean? I might
Yeah.
get that people may scorn me at first, but because we have that natural mean mug here in Minnesota. I don't know why, but but when we start talking, people start really coming forth.
Yeah, it's again, it's kind of strange because, you mentioned that you gotten the sort of the DWB experience, driving while black experience from the cop, and again, my view on the cops, right, is that here's what I have observed, is that in places that certainly, whether you want to call it institutional racism, there's a sort of institutional oppression, and it seems that the jobs of the cops are, again, they get bored, and they're supposed to be, they're basically roving bands of thugs, and they're out looking for action, and so
Yep.
in whatever community they're in, again, it's sort of cultural. They're going to go after anyone who can't fight back, right, or doesn't have anybody to stand up for them. Again, in Texas, when I was young there, I was a long-haired hippie musician freak, rode a motorcycle, so I was a target. So people, or people who didn't have money, and or again, if they were black or whoever, they just targeted those who didn't have anybody to stand up for them, right? Weren't likely to get legal representation. It didn't matter who it was. And when I see different communities, doesn't matter whether that's, immigrants of any stripe, any color. I saw it in Salt Lake City, mostly, people who are not Mormon, right, will take oppression because they don't have anybody to stand up for them, and that's been my view. It is institutional oppression, but it's against anyone who is unable to stand up for themselves. Would you consider that you've observed that as well?
Yeah, no doubt. They do definitely prey on the weak. That's how I see it. Like if you're not prepared, man, they gonna slaughter you, or what's it, railroad you, or
Yep.
just blow over you. And that's the one thing too with, I think you mentioned the Moors earlier. That's one thing that kind of gets people interested in the Moors is when you first looking up how to drive without a license, the first studies you'll find out is Moorish studies and Moorish nationality and this and that. So then we have drivers that feel like they don't need a driver's license and they don't need license plates and they can just travel freely without knowing, that there's more to that. And all it does is just agitate the system when
Yep.
they're not, researching properly and doing things like that.
The same is true, I think, with those, who are sort of in the sovereignty movement or whatever, and they go, "Yeah, I'm a free sovereign being," but they don't understand the legalities behind it, and so they try to do things without, they're trying to get out of the system and not in the matrix. And I do not consent, which is perfect. And if you want to, I do not consent sticker, let me know. I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how later. I'll send you one for free. But they create havoc for the rest of us, right? Because they don't know what they're doing. I suppose it's the same way as somebody who comes out as a flat earther, but they don't know anything about it, and then they get made to look foolish. I think the same thing is true of anybody who makes positive claims without knowing, doing the research, right? Without knowing the stuff to back it up. Would you agree? Again, I'm sure that you have seen, that sort of thing, whether it's in areas of spirituality, law, right?
Well, yeah. And it messes it up. It's like, when you're trying to wake somebody up and you're kind of going overboard and you end up pushing them away from the whole thing. It That's the same like concept, I believe. So
Absolutely.
my approach, like I just throw things out there subtly. I bank on the law of you can't unsee this and you can't, while I've captured your attention, I'm gonna deliver as much knowledge like in that instant, you know what I mean? Because I
Sure.
know people got short attention spans. So the way I word things, the way things are visually and everything, I try to make things appealing and triggering in such a way that you do end up reading the whole thing and you do end up, you know, getting socially engineered, but in a good way, I feel like.
So I have. I guess what would you say when you're trying to wake people up? Right? Do you target your information more toward what we would call black culture, or do you go back and forth? What? How do you feel? Who do you feel like you're targeting with your social engineering efforts?
I At first I started to go with just the Black African American community, but then I decided that branching off is best because if I could show worldwide how this is agreed, like there's a misdeception and misdescribed, and I can have people confirm in other countries around the world about this, then I feel like that's more effective and that shows more merit. So I've branched out, but I do like on an individual basis do have some posts like targeted towards the black people and some
So
general posts to
you put some
everybody.
put some black Twitter on it.
Oh yeah, you have to
Dude, my
just to
wife
show
my wife loves
because you
black
got to have
Twitter.
your credibility, right? You got
Yeah,
to show that you got your still got your you're still in the theme of things,
right.
right? You're still cool.
And that you can relate to them, right? Yeah. I mean, my wife loves Black Twitter. She doesn't. She's like one that she doesn't post much, but she follows a bunch of things, and she's like, "Now they're the coolest." Like I know, right? They know what's up. So do you? So from your perspective, then, when you're trying to hit everybody, do you find that when you, let's say, Anglicanize, right, some of your posts that you can reach, let's say, a broader target market. Do you feel like that some of the people from the black community then feel alienated and like you're not talking to them? Or conversely, when you throw the black Twitter down and you show what's up, that you're not reaching, the broader community that you might? What's been your observation and what's been the response to that?
That's interesting because it it gets into a whole dilemma where some if I'm some of the general audience may feel like I'm just spreading, black stuff, you know what I mean? And they may feel like that's racist and it's like pro-black is self-hate or white hate, right? That's how they may interpret it. So I try to keep it even and kind of balance it all out. And what I do is I just go super hard, right? I just don't. I hold everybody accountable. Like black people want you to. Everything's cool, but don't talk about Obama or don't talk about Michael Jordan or don't talk about this. Well, no, they're not safe because I'm gonna go and tackle them leaders. And then when I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying,
Yep.
some on the other side, I tackle them as hard as well. So it's like equal, and people don't seem like, oh, I'm cherry picking and I'm just being biased and this and that, because what it is such a big co-op and it's such a total like COINTELPRO that you got
Yep.
to really like dissect it from
Sure.
the top.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, again, I've noticed that hey, you have broad appeal, but I also noticed, as I said, that you target some to some and some to others, and I know that you're cognizant of it because when we were talking about how to introduce you, and you said, yeah, Deezy's fine. You said, I just don't want to seem too ghetto, and I'm like, that's funny because I can tell I can see your wheels turning, going, let's see, I want to hit these guys, so get a little jive and cool in it to reach these people, but I don't want to alienate these people. I love that you're cognizant of it and you're trying to hit everybody. So
Yeah, and everybody doesn't see every post too, and that's the main thing that I know. And it's like I know what I say and the topics I say is, liked by certain groups of people, and that's so I bank on that as well. It's a whole I got like ADHD with this shit, OCD with this.
Oh man, ADD and OCD together is a dangerous combo. Trust me, I know this. Oh man. So here's one I wanted to touch on is that one of the things that we know, right, is that the powers that ought not be, or the PIC, right, people in charge, however you want to call them, all right, with the air quotes around it. What my observation is that anything that is true, they're going to work extra hard to keep it from people from seeing it, and whether that is the shape of the earth, or whether that is spirituality for whatever reason, or however that is, they again they have controlled opposition in every place you go. So every stream you try to travel down, they've got a gatekeeper there, right, and trying to prevent you. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the things again I've noticed, and I think that it would be disingenuous or blind to not see that there has been a specific type of institutional oppression, right, of the black community within American history, and so one. Here's a question I guess I have, and this is I get your take on it, right? Is that there's been going all the way back to eugenics and Darwinism and these kind of things that, and this was I think the foundation of the Dred Scott decision of 3/5 was that there are physiological differences more than just sociological and cultural differences between quote races, right? And I'm of the opinion that we are of one race, and that is the human race. We may again look different for different reasons, and maybe that's adaptation, and maybe it's because the creator made several root races. That's been you know, told by several ancient cultures. The answer is I don't fucking know. Shit, I don't know for sure, right? So one thing I know for sure is that I don't know for sure, right? I keep that one open, and I always say that I reserve the right to be absolutely wrong. But my experience is that within my friends and in the black community, and my experience within church and that sort of stuff is that the black people I know seem to have, I would say, a deeper sense or more open to spiritualism. I know many who, open Christianity, they're big on that, or it's if it's voodoo or whatever it is, they're less. They're more open about it, and they're more accepting and willing to believe, I guess, if you want to say that. And so I want to get your thoughts on the idea that is there a physiological versus a cultural difference there? Is that entirely sociological? And is this one of the things that, again, going back to the controllers and how they try to oppress things that are basically dangerous to them, right? That the truth is dangerous. And so is this a potential thing where they specifically wanted to keep this group of people down because they were terrified that they knew spirituality, whereas maybe white people have a less proclivity or are easier to convince of a hyper materialistic world that there is nothing beyond the veil. If you follow if you smell what I'm
Yeah,
stepping in
yeah.
there,
Oh yeah.
give me your thoughts on that.
I think absolutely that spirituality is one of the main threats that the oppressors had on, black people because they put Christianity in them, and I feel like Christianity and Muslim, they forced those two religions on them. And I can go into the Muslim stuff a little bit later, but what I feel like with voodoo, when I see things like voodoo and like Wicca, some of like the older versions of Wicca, I feel like the indigenous cultures had tough and like shamans from like the North Americans or like the Indians and stuff like that. I feel
Yep.
like that type of stuff is more real and more, that's what I attribute to spirituality.
Sure.
And I feel like with religion, no offense to religion, I feel like that was just their way to like capture everybody and put them under, how can I put it? Like
A
just
false spirituality, right? That's the
yeah,
way I view it. I mean, again, I openly say I have a great relationship with my Creator, and I see it within the context of Jesus. I'm a big fan. I mean, I consider him my close friend and Savior. I'll even go that way, but not at all within. I say not at all. Very, very different than the Christian traditions, and certainly, again, everyone that not everyone. Anyway, I'll pull up short, but go. I believe that religion, in and of itself, is a way to capture those who are interested in spirituality and divert them into a dead end path. How about that?
and yeah, and that's no doubt, and that's why they try so hard to that's why they tried so hard to put that into us. And what it was they really beat it into us, and they made us demonize, witches and burn them at the stake. And I even just got saged yesterday. Like when I was at the event, we had some Native American people here, and they saged me, and we had people walking around saying that's the devil, and that type of programming and that removing the way of stepping away from nature is basically what it is.
Yep.
I feel like they got us to a way where we're scared of our natural self. And when I see voodoo, like when I see people and what they do, I see that like people would be scared of that. And I understand why they went so hard on removing people from that. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it is. And black people have an affinity with it because it's in their genes. And we could talk about people having their genes locked
Mm-hmm.
and all type of information that's like locked away and we can't even
Genetic
tap
memory.
into it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's proven.
we have that affinity with it still. We still feel something,
Yep.
and the way that they have it is so close that it's, what I mean. It resonates at a similar energy to it, but it's just not the same.
No, I'm really picking up what you're putting down there, and I'm glad you mentioned Native American cultures as well, because again, this is another group that's been historically really shut down and really ostracized by again systemic corporate capitalism in the United States, for example. And again, anything that gets to a natural solution that puts you in touch with nature, they seem to go hard after, right? And so that's kind of my view, and I think that's why I brought it up and going, to my view, they're the hardest on things that are the biggest threat to them. Right, and so these things are a big threat, and to me, that's one of the reasons that they have been so oppressive. Again, I hate to use the word black people, whatever, in the United States, is because it's a huge threat to them. That the capabilities and capacities, they keep saying, again, they lie to us about everything, right? So they say, oh,
Right.
people who are into conspiracy theories are crazy, right? Or now they're saying psychopathic, right, and dangerous. But it's because they're afraid, right? And I've very often said that, the truth, right, does not fear either investigation or exposition, right? But rather it delights in the spotlight of inquiry. right? And so anytime
Yep.
that you got to hide something or say don't look there, that's an open invitation to me to go digging right there. It's a big red X, right? Go
And
here.
honestly, and yeah, and that's right. And honestly, spirituality is kind of one of the hardest things that I found to um socially engineered, or not say it like that, but just talk about and introduce people to if they're not hip to it. Like the conspiracy stuff and pointing out stuff is fake and stuff, that's easy. But like getting people into the groove of spirituality that aren't already kind of familiar with it
Or open
is
to it.
really, really difficult. Yeah,
Sure.
it's
I
really
mean,
difficult.
this has been my experience, Deezy, is that whether it's the awakening process in terms of the conspiracy stuff or spirituality, while they're different, they're tangentially related, and they seem to follow a similar process, and that one can only go there truly if they're interested in it. Right, where they
Yeah.
have to, you can't drag them, but you can plant seeds. But I find that it is a little different for the awakening process in terms of information, the conspiracy stuff, or the tinfoil hat, Faraday fedora, if you will. Those things are people often it comes from an intellectual aspect. Those who have again enough. Their ego enough in check that they can admit that they might have been mistaken or wrong, and they have the intellectual honesty to go looking for truth, whatever it says and whatever that implies, rather than just trying to defend one position or view, right? If you go out in it with that aspect and confirmation bias is in the way, you can never see it any differently, right? Your hand is closed, your fist is tight around it, and you can never open your hand to gather any more. Right, so
Right.
I do find that those things are similar, but I totally agree with you that the spirituality and that part of ourselves is its own journey. Again, in some ways tangentially related, because I think once you find out the way you've been lied to, especially for example the shape of the Earth, you come to a place of going, oh man, I guess if it looks like that, then the chances are it is created. That means a creator. That means maybe there is
Right.
something, right? And so I think those two are again they walk next to each other, but it's not identical. But it is a
That's a
similar
great point.
process. It is a similar process in that people do have to be again open to it, and they have to have their own journey. Has been my experience. So I would say don't be discouraged, right? In that if people are less open to it, it's just something they kind of have to start looking for on their own, and then when they ask the questions, be there with a ready answer, right?
Yep, no doubt. And you're totally right. Like the ties between conspiracy and spirituality is like neck and neck. Like I didn't become spiritual without knowing about GMOs first. Like, oh, if they're draining, if it's like that, then there's has to be something deeper, and that's
Exactly. And when you go looking for the who, right, behind it, inevitably you run up against Jesuits in the Catholic Church and those who have held power for a long time and what they believe, right? And that's where then that's where many people again they come to this Luciferian thing, and of course the exoteric view is that they don't really believe in a devil per se. They just use that as an archetype. But the esoteric, when you get down to the bottom, they absolutely believe, and they do magic and they do all the stuff that they say is nonsense. They believe in it, right? And so when we follow their beliefs, it's like, hey man, it doesn't matter what I believe. What they believe is what's happening, and they're definitely casting spells and they're definitely doing all this stuff. Androgyny, they're doing the apotheosis of androgyny. So transgenderism, it doesn't matter what I think about it. I can demonstrate that that's what they believe, right? And
and
so
that's the whole thing. Like we all knew about the Illuminati at a young age, but then once you got older, it kind of was like throw it out the window. Like everybody seemed to forget about it now.
right.
But I remember being a teenager and it was like, damn, the Illuminati this, Illuminati that, but never, people just tend to forget stuff like that, or it just doesn't matter anymore. After so long, it seems like.
Yeah, but it does seem that again, those who are in control and those who are pulling the levers, so to speak, those people again, they have a spiritual belief system. I'll put it that way, and they're definitely trying to keep you away from natural spiritual connection. So again, it should be a big red X for something to look into, right?
Oh yeah. no doubt.
So here's one thing you mentioned GMOs, right? And I've seen this again. Here's another one that seems cultural, but I'll ask you about it because I don't know, right? I just observe it. It does seem that many of those within, let's say, the black woke community, the woke folk, right, are more focused on the food thing, whether it's being veganism, right, or GMOs, that sort of stuff, where maybe culturally the white folk, us crackers, saltine Americans, if you will, are maybe more into the vaccines and that sort of stuff. What's your take on that?
Um, yeah, I feel like with the food for the black community, I feel like it's a huge thing because in my neighborhood, it's one of those neighborhoods that are labeled as a food desert, which means like there's only corner stores and maybe one grocery store, one or two grocery stores over north. And the food that we see and the quality of the generic food is something that is like just more prevalent and is one of the topics that just kind of is like really immediate that we needed to address. So that's why I feel like a lot of us kind of hammer the head on GMOs because when I see my folks like really obese and in the drive-through and like all they serve is chicken and like bro, I swear to God, Baldini, there's like for 6 blocks there's a chicken place for like 6 blocks straight up Broadway.
Oh
Like
man.
you can get fried chicken like on from 6 different places. So it's like it's really crazy when you think about it and we try to hammer the head on that to bring back also like just economics as well because of course a lot of these owners aren't black, so a lot of these people are just seeming to just suck all the money out
Man,
from our thing.
exactly. And you're getting, and I was going to, again, this is a great segue dovetail, right? Is because it seems, in my view, that one of the ways that the black community has been specifically targeted is through poor nutrition and selling them on, Mickey D's and fast food and sodas and, processed foods to a degree that, man, it's remarkable to me. It seems somehow that they really have an excellent success rate in keeping the white folks away from spirituality, but taking the black, but really hurting the blacks economically and nutritionally. Would you say am I reading that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And as far as like fashion and a lot of like the entertainment, it kind of keeps your mind off of all
Yeah.
of that because you're so in a hurry and so in a rush for quick things, either whether you're a drug dealer or whether you're like a single mom or whether you're like just trying to make it in like ends meet. You're gonna be like really in a rush and anxious mode to like get every dollar and be on a quick and run to get food. So it just makes it easy for you to just get that food, man. I feel like the food is really really bad here. And so we have plenty of groups in Minneapolis that have been putting in work. Like I just volunteered at this youth farm, and we put a youth garden in the shape of a basketball court, which will appeal to
I
the
saw
community.
pictures of that. That is fucking awesome, man.
Yeah,
I
it
love
was
I
so
love that
dope.
shit.
Man, it got like edible apple trees, pear trees, plums, and just indigenous herbs. And like we got this obsidian circle in the middle with like obsidian rocks in the middle for like little cool little piece, little circle. So we put a lot of work there, and that's something that I love to bring back to the community and working with these organizations that are here because there's fights out here. I'll say that it's not all bad.
Yeah. What So, that's another one, you kind of touched on, and certainly that was proven over and over again, is that the intelligence communities, the alphabet agencies in the United States and part of the Five Eyes, specifically, again, CIA, brought in drugs, and they specifically targeted both the black community and the Hispanic community, but particularly the black community, both in northern and southern California, Compton and Oakland, specifically southern and northern California,
Yeah.
respectively, as well as Chicago, New York, and other places, and even in the South and Atlanta and that sort of places. But particularly with crack cocaine, but other drugs, and again, from my perspective, it's it's a specific target, and it's a very devious thing. So you oppress people sociologically and financially, and then give them an escape, which is drugs, which then puts them. But then you make it illegal, right? And then you have for-profit prisons, and then you've got a $1 billion industry by selling people drugs to escape from the horrors of poverty and oppression. And that's their only way to make money, or a good way to make a lot of money quickly when you're young, selling drugs, right? And then and using them, and then that puts you at risk of being in prison, which makes them even more money. And so, to me, this is again, it's been shown that the CIA did that, but is that also, again, knowing that you're specific to this Minneapolis St. Paul area, would that well describe what you saw growing up in your neighborhoods?
Yeah, I can't necessarily say that I've seen like, the CIA plan the drugs and all of that, but I can say that yes, it's to my understanding that the CIA and a lot of COINTEL had huge impacts on that.
Well, let's
And
go.
if I
Let's go
may
with
talk,
what you do know, right?
yeah,
Drugs and the drug culture often goes hand in hand with like the hip hop, rap culture, and in many ways, sort of the gangsta culture. Did you
that's
see
where I was
that?
going to go.
Yeah. Did you see
And
that in Minneapolis, St. Paul?
yes, because those are the people that you like, the rappers and the like, because I was on the local hip hop scene and things like that. So of course, like a lot of the promoters and a lot of the club people would be, laundering their money through, the club and things like that. So I've seen that, yes. And as far as like, I want to speak on like even the Crips, for instance, they when they first got their startup, they were like, one of the first gangs, and they started off helping the community and this and that. But what it was Huey P. Newton who was involved in the Black Panthers Party. He also he put on the Crips as well, and he helped them get like their startup. So what it was Huey P. Newton. He is a Pi Sigma or Pi Beta Sigma, which is a black fraternity, which is it's actually one of the blue fraternities, and then they have a symbol, which is one of the Crips symbols. So now we have this black leader who came from the black who fresh out of prison and got involved with the Black Panthers Party, started funding the Crips, and then he came from this Greek letter fraternity, and then the Crips get co-opted, and the ones mainly putting the crack cocaine out after that with the CIA. So we can kind of see how these groups um they have their members and their leaders that get tied back to these Greek letter fraternities. Even the Kappas, which is the red fraternity, they have a symbol which is the blood, the sign for the blood gang, and the Kappa, which are the capillaries. You have those in your body, so those carry your blood. So there's whole like subversion with these with a lot of agents, and a lot of these gangs are kind of like tied to Masonic groups.
And as we say, words have meanings. From your perspective, then, would you say, I don't know, chicken or the egg? Does the black culture influence the rap music, or does the rap music influence the black culture?
The music influences the culture for sure.
Yeah, that's that's
For
been,
sure.
it's my observation, but of course, they'd tell the story the other way around. But I see it the other way, that it has been predominantly the music which has taken over, pushing the aspects of the culture. Okay, so again, these are things that I'm curious to know, right? Because I can observe things, but it's a limited observation, and I certainly don't have the firsthand experience that you do, right? Being it part of it. So part of this is just being curious on my part, right? I'm always wanting to know more, right? And
Yeah,
I know.
it's just crazy, man. Like I can attest to like the music, because the hip hop that we hear now is all this whiny boy rap, all this like demasculation of the man, and like mainly auto tune. So we're not hearing really vocals anymore, no real tunes. We're just hearing like a auto tune robot voice on like a keyboard.
Yeah.
So we've been social engineered on that, and we have these local rappers thinking that that's hot and that's the new sound, and if you want to sell records, that's what you have to do. So on a local scene, that when I'm doing shows, I see a lot of this same sound. So I'm like, this isn't this is obviously social engineering. Like,
Okay, so again, not to unnecessarily flog a mortality challenged equine American. Yeah, just beat the dead horse. So just kind of one more thing, and then I'll move away from it because again, I don't want that to dominate our conversation. But again, these are
yeah,
just things that again, interesting to me because again, things I don't know, right? So I always want to
yeah.
know more, and so I'm gonna ask these questions. From your perspective, what's the biggest threat to the Black community right now in the U.S.?
I would have to say I would have to say entertainment, like just hands down. Like it's a such multifaceted thing,
Hmm.
whether it's the what the girls are doing, what the fashion is, what you're watching, like sports. Would have the
Sure.
people getting like they feel like they have to be an NBA player
Man, and you said
because then they
it,
can.
and you said it too. It's subversive, right? It's subtle. It's less overt and more subtle because it comes at you backwards. You're just being entertained, right?
Yeah.
No, I get that. So, a quick question from chat. Eric DeLion asked about how much control drugs have in Black culture, and I suspect that probably because I was going to ask how much control, how much influence gangs have. They may go hand in hand, but maybe not. So, from your perspective, answer those. And again, I want to kind of move away from this because again, I don't want it just to be the sole focus. That's not why I had you here, right? Because hey, I got a
Yeah,
black guy.
yeah.
I want to pick his.
I got
I
black
mean,
questions.
yeah, but like I said, I mean, it's a prime opportunity for me to ask, just as I would ask somebody in Norway, right? Tell me about your culture. It's the so it has nothing to do with race. It's just curiosity. But can you address those questions individually and together?
Yeah, I think the main power that drugs have over the Black community is the financial grip. I feel like people buy drugs more than they buy food. I mean, I didn't come with like those statistics on that, but it can be fair to say that like the people that I see, like the homeless people and everything that's going on, there's more money being bought with drugs
Mm-hmm.
than food. So I feel like and then all of that money is being taken out of the community, and because of these, like I just said, these gang leaders had their start with uh, social engineering groups, and even the leaders today, maybe some are Masonic, even the clique gangs and the GDs up here and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of the money is being funneled and taken, and there's a lot of, who knows what's being put into it. So there's that. And what was your question, Baldini?
Well, it was just kind of a tangent to that. Specifically, how much influence does gang culture have in the Black community?
Oh, the gangs are the ones that are just distributing it and basically
So it's
creating the threat of I don't know how to put it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're the ones that are distributing the drugs, but they're also just here to create that type of feel and
sure.
anxiety and
Because I mean, I don't, especially. I mean, certainly drugs and gangs are links, but to me, that's not the total influence. I mean, that would be my perspective, and I could be wrong. And I hope you'll correct me. That's not the totality of the influence that gangs have. My understanding, of course, is that especially when you have, well, everybody wants to belong to something, right? They want to belong, and then if you feel like you don't have a sense of belonging at home, especially if you don't have two parents and the mom works all the time, assuming it's a mom because that's a kind of common thing. You got a single mom. She's got kids. She has to work hard to then they become latchkey kids, and then they want to belong to something. And so gangs fill that role to become their family, and then it becomes, they become loyal to that, and it starts early. And so that's my perspective. But again, I'm not there. I don't know. But
yeah, a lot of people came through like trauma bonding that like started the gangs through trauma bonding, but a lot of them, a lot of gangs were initially for the community, but I swear a lot of them are just illegal drug pushers,
Okay.
basically. The
Well,
government can't sell the drugs legally, so they're going to do it illegally.
and that's pretty much the same as it was with Italian mobsters in New York. They contributed to the community, so that people in the community, especially those who were oppressed and poor, they saw money coming in, and so they would protect the gangsters because they were helping them. Right? They'd hand out money, they'd help a few people, but also you have the other side of it, which is protection rackets and that sort of stuff, extortion. So yeah, I mean, organized crime is bad no matter how you look at it. But yeah, my question was about the sum total, how big of an influence. So, for example, I assume it's different in the North than in the South, but in the South, I would say the proportionate is that if you were to break this into a pie chart, for example, a big influence on black culture would be the church, right? The Baptist church or whatever they go to, but church, spirituality. A big portion is fashion, right? When whatever that, and then another big chunk would be sports and that sort of thing. So entertainment, music, right? That would all be, and then drugs / gangs and that sort of thing would be a smaller portion, but with a heavy impact. And that's what I saw. Again, in the South, here in the North, I pay less attention. In the Pacific Northwest, it's all over the map because it's very diverse, and I see it differently. The biggest gang here are ultra liberals, right? That's the biggest culture here in the Pacific Northwest are ultra liberals. So if you were to maybe summarize that for me, and then we'll move away from the topic because that's not. I didn't want to get completely derailed, but I did want to fill in some information gaps. So. In your perspective and in your neck of the woods, what's the biggest influences? You said entertainment, right, is the biggest danger, but in terms of overall influence, and if you would address them separately, drugs and gangs, or again music, culture, giving me a sense of what you see around you. So I understand this is both generational and locality difference because I'm older than you, but anyway, so tell me what you see.
Well, just basically, I mean, I feel like you can't separate the drugs from the gangs, and I feel like growing up, the entertainment is our hip hop entertainment has just flaunted it, just advertised drugs so much that when when I was in high school, all we did was just go home and smoke. And so getting familiar with gangs, by now everybody is, in gangs, but it's more church. Church is one of the big influences for like the older people. But in my younger generation, it kind of took over. But we've been moving to different things. We've been like our activist groups have been taken over. So there's a big chunk of our community that is working in a community too. So I feel like that's taken over some of the gang culture. But
So political groups then activism has an impact then.
oh yeah,
Okay, so that's a newer generational thing, right? That was certainly in my generation, irrespective of the cultural perspective. That was a very small portion, and that was mostly the hippie types, right? Or hardcore right wing, right? Those the hardcore left and the hardcore right were the only ones really politically active, and the rest of people were interested in making money, getting high, and getting laid. Yeah, because I was a child of the '80s, and so it was a big party there. All right, well, let's thank you again for being so open and candid about what are for many people touchy issues, right? And again, I feel like I had to, in a way, I hate that I feel like I have to tiptoe around or whatever. I just don't want to upset anybody.
all good. Sorry for being so vague. That's just all I
Dude, you're hitting it out of the park. I think every time. And again, I just want to get your perspective on things. I don't, hold you to it and go, well, Deezy said, right? Well, Carissa, that motherfucker totally wrong, man. Bullshit. No, I mean, again, I understand that I'm asking about your perspective and what you see, but with the understanding that clearly you've had a different experience and perspective, and that's what I want to know about, right? These are the things that I'm interested in is understanding how people see them differently. right? So here's a for example, and we can kind of maybe just touch on this as we move forward into different aspects. Is that a big part of your beliefs is like reincarnation, right? And my only experience is that I've had a couple of experiences that I probably could only would be Occam's razor best described as probably a past life experience. On the other hand, I struggle with that because it doesn't comport with some things that I know. So I don't know what to make of it. But I'd say, it's not a big part for me. But I will say again, this is one of those areas where I know for sure that I don't know. Right? This is just like I say, I don't know what happens for sure after you die. I have some a variety of sources that tell me different things, but I know this is one area where I say anybody who speaks with absolute certainty, right? Absolute certainty is the eminent domain of frauds and fools, right? They don't know for sure, so they're either lying to you or they're deluded. Because insofar as I know, very few people are coming back to tell us, right? And nobody from here has really gone over there, so we don't know. We can speculate and we can believe whatever we want, but telling other people that they're stupid because they believe something different, to me is ridiculous, right? So anyway, this is how what I say. For example, with Crow, when I'm talking to him, we often disagree on things, but we agree on so many more others. Why tear the relationship apart over things that we don't see the same? I assume that people see things different, and this is why I want to understand people, better and what their views are, because they might have a piece of the puzzle that I don't have, right? Then, okay, so as we move forward, let's talk about the woke thing and getting what are some of the topics that you try to wake people up to? I know we have a huge grab bag, right, and the rabbit holes go every different direction. What are the big ones that you hit frequently?
Frequently, I like to, do flat Earth. I do things like the deception in GMOs. I'll do things like this germ lately, topical things where I won't speak of, but the bed bug, I think it's called, or, or
Yeah,
what,
the beer bug, the
uh,
beer plague is what
yeah,
my wife calls it, right? The great beer plague of 2020, right?
yeah, been hitting on that. But one thing that I love to really hit on is the law of attraction and one's individual power of really manifesting things, more better things in their life, and more of what they want and less of what they don't. And that's something that I kind of had my foundation on earlier in my Facebook, because I've only had it for like a year now. Like I deleted my old one, and then after I like subscribed to Crow 777, I listened to like 150 episodes. Then I was just like so ready to like to just talk to everybody, and made my Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Started talking to people, but law of attraction was something that I knew about before that, and it's a topic that I feel like I've helped people with in their life, and I've even like developed a few formulas that I feel like are helpful for people to realize and help reprogram themselves and things like that. So that's one topic that I really love to talk about.
And I'll just respond quickly, to kind of keep an eye on the side chat here. Eric Deline says, so you're saying that you can't know anything for sure? Well, here's how I'm going to put it. From my perspective, Eric, there are things that I can be convinced of. Some things with a pretty good bit of my experience and my understanding leads me to be fairly certain of certain things for myself. But I also understand that different people are going to view things differently and may have a completely different experience. And it doesn't necessarily mean that their experience is untrue. So from my perspective, I mean, I certainly, again, I have an experience with the Creator. I experience the Creator a certain way, and I do not in any way doubt that, not because of a belief system, but because of past experience. And so, moreover, again, so I would say I can't make claims for anybody else of absolute, positive claims to say you got to see it this way. So here's a for example, I call myself a geometric agnostic. Well, I'm not a flat earther. Again, I don't like labels, but I would say I don't know for sure what it is because I can't prove it. It's not what you know; it's what you can prove to some degree. And so I can speculate and hypothesize, but I don't know for certain what the edges look like. But it does present itself as flat and motionless. But however, what I can do is take the positive claims made from the other side, the heliocentric model, and tear those apart. Which is why I often say that as a truth community, it's a bit of a misnomer in that it is difficult to know for certain what some of the truths are. But what we can do for certain is to disprove the lies. And so I would say that much of what I do in my research is to show the untenable nature of the mainstream narrative in every aspect. And so, to that degree, I can certainly say I know for sure that what they say is a lie, right? And I can demonstrate that in many ways. But their own, yeah, and their own belief system is going to be what it is. But for me, making positive claims and go, well, here's the kind of thing I'm talking about, Eric, is that people will show up, for example, comment threads go, "That's a dude." Okay, the transgender thing. Again, I first thought it was kind of nuts, and I started looking into it, and I realized much of what swayed me was understanding what they believed, right, and how they revere the androgynous, and so then it made sense, and so from there I can work some things out and say, yes, there are a preponderance of evidence in many cases that you say, yeah, it's highly likely, but it's not a slam dunk until you got their legs apart, right? I mean, I don't know for sure, but I can suspect. I mean, honestly, I suspect that most sex symbols in the modern era, from even starting around 1900, probably were transgender. I think it's highly likely because they want to sell you on this confusion thing. Can I prove it? No. I mean, I can't prove that. But I can say, based on what they believe and based on evidence, it's likely, or at least it's plausible. Right. So this is where I'm coming from, guys, is that I rarely make positive claims. I will prognosticate from time to time. I will speculate from time to time with the caveat that that's what I'm doing. This is the way I see it. And you're welcome to believe whatever you want to believe. So anyway, to that regard,
and that's Phil, if I may
go
chime
ahead.
in on that a little bit. I feel like with beliefs and everything, like everything is real, like everything can exist. And I feel like it's just like determining the higher truths of matters. Like there's certain things that you can believe, but then there's some you can always believe more. Like there's always more to something. So then like you start to find the higher truths of matter, and then things start to kind of unfold and kind of paint bigger pictures. But you can like be complacent and believe in any little level of plane of existence that you want, but there's always higher waves and higher like levels, I feel like. So
I agree with that. And again, I see Eric DeLine say all good. And, again, from my perspective, Eric, I'm not trying to convince you, or I'm just, again, explaining. And that's what I do, for example, in my Solar Scriptura on Sundays, is I'm not trying to convince you of seeing it a certain way. I'm telling you how I see it, and opening that door of possibility to say, hey, this is my experience, and I have no reason to be dishonest with you. So you can take it for what it's worth and do with whatever you like with it. From your perspective, Deezy, and you said that all things are possible. I go, oh, okay, to a degree, I'll say that. But does that preclude the idea of an objective truth, right? So, and by that I would mean like these things are capital T true, and some things I think, from my perspective, are not true. For example, men can menstruate, right? Or transgender men are women. I go, no, they're not. I find that empirically not true. They can believe that they're women. They can want people to accept them as that. All those things are to them true. From my perspective, are they a biological woman? No. Is the sky purple? No, not unless you put a filter on it. Is the world a ball? Not in that sense that we're described. The toroidal fields might represent a circular egg shape, the world egg. But I think there are some things I can demonstrate to be untrue. What's your take on that?
yeah, no, I totally I feel that, and that's kind of
And again,
no, that's totally.
I'm not asking you to agree with me, right? I'm just saying, yeah, tell me your view, because
But what I kind of wanted to mean was like you can be like your reality is what you believe in, basically. And if you sit here and believe something, you will sit here and find things that agree with your reality at times,
yeah,
even though it's not true at all.
yeah,
You know
dude.
what I mean?
Okay,
You
yeah,
can believe in some. You can believe in, like you're saying, you can believe in something that's totally not true, like the globe. But there's you can find some evidence and have something that supports it, and you can sit there complacent. But there's always higher truths or higher levels of thought than that, or higher levels of than
okay,
you can think.
man.
And And what it always boils down to is always about an aspect in life. You know what I mean? We can go to your relationship aspect, or that'd be like your geographical aspect in life, or just these different aspects. People find complacency in like belief. I don't know. It's kind of like we're hard to put, but it's if you can follow the thread a
No,
little.
I do get it. And you say you're 27?
Yeah.
Dude, you're a fucking rock star. If I knew at 27 what, if I had it going on like you had it going on, the world would be a dangerous place. Or I would be dangerous. It would be better. I don't know. But man, seriously, dude, you got it going on for 27. I applaud you, not only in seeing it, but also, your willingness to speak out on it. I know that's not easy. Tell us about that. What I think anybody who's gone said anything about flat Earth, right, has gotten people going, "Don't reproduce, drink bleach, motherfucker," and they get really irate. So, what kind of pushback do you get, and what do you think your rate of success versus frustration, and what do you consider a success? How do you measure that when you're trying to socially engineer from your perspective?
So I believe in the law of numbers. So what I first did is I gathered like a lot of people from like different groups of from the people I listen to, like the Crow group and like this Flat Bro Sanchez group. So I've gathered an audience that what I mean understands what I know. But I also added a bunch of my normie friends. So what I bank on is like a lot of them are silent peepers, right? They just watch and they don't never comment.
The
Sometimes
stalkers,
they
yeah,
comment.
yeah.
Yeah, and what I've been seeing recently, past these past 6 months, is I've been seeing a lot of them post like a lot of things that surprise me, and a lot of things that
You mean the
kind of,
normies?
of course,
The normies are starting to post things.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I feel you.
even or even chiming in on, what I mean, the posts that I've had. So when I see these people that these are the ones that I don't like even like try to put down their throat or try to really, um egg on and really, really conversate with, but they're the ones that like silently watch. So when they hit me in the inbox, they're like, "Oh man, I've been seeing what you're doing, bro. You know what I mean on the sideline, and I respect that." And woo woo woo. So they give me my props, but they've never liked the status. They've never, commented. They've never did this or did that, but they acknowledge it. So I kind of see how one, I understand that they're scared of being associated with that, with these type of topics, because of course the ridicule comes in. But me being a scapegoat, I accept that for everybody, and I go full ahead. And really, that's when you see 60 comments. I'm like, okay, these are for the silent peepers. And I really get a lot of those confirmations. It's not just like very few. It's a lot of people that say that, and it just that's what I uh, that's what confirms for me.
Yeah. So, what do you consider? So clearly, that makes you. I think. Well, again, from what I'm hearing from you, is that you feel kind of gratified and a little, I say justified a bit in that when it's confirmation when you see the normies start posting or start liking or chiming in to the positive on things that might have been more controversial in the past, right? So that's a measure of success. Do you? Do you keep? You say you believe in law of numbers, so do you keep track of how many people you quote convert? I don't know if I want to put it that way, but that you red
I,
pill or flat smack or whatever, however you want to call it. Do you have any success stories there? And I saw somebody in the chat go, "Yeah, I'm over 3, right?" And I know
right,
that
right.
several people struggle with this, especially because they're
Oh,
trying to
seriously,
in their own
that's a
family
lot.
and
Three is a
stuff.
lot.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly.
No, serious. I don't count them. I mean, I've only been doing this for like a year now, and like the people closest to me, like I got like 8 of my closest friends, and I can attest to them that we always chat for like hours, and they kind of come with me with questions, and we really go through like reprogramming, and people send me like so much hours of video, and people want my opinions on this and that. So I mean, if I could track it, I'd probably say like I had probably like 15
Oh,
people that I kind of got
I told you you're a rock
like.
star. Right. I mean, I don't know, any. I mean, I know that there are some people who now started. They'll go. especially with this beer bug thing, has been an eye opener for some folks, right? And they'll say, "Hey, dude, you're the tinfoil hat guy. What do you think about?" And so I've seen this wake up probably more than any other in terms of people starting to ask questions, right? But again, I don't know how many I would say that I wouldn't say probably I even come close to 15. I think in some ways I could be accused of sort of like taking the safe route and preaching to the choir,
Right,
a little
right.
bit. But again, my purpose is has been primarily since I started informing people of stuff that I knew on the Crow 777 show, and then began the Awakening Project. It really has a specific, somewhat limited scope, and that is to help understand why certain people wake up versus those who don't, because everyone, I think, who has come awake has wanted to, whether they tried openly or didn't, right, or whatever path they took, they've wanted to tell others what they knew, and often meet, hard pushback in some cases. And so that stops some people, and then some people like you and some of the leading content creators, right, forge ahead, and they take all the slings and arrows. Like Jaron was one of the first guys to do it, and took all and ODD TV, right, a bunch of guys, RV Russian vids, some of these early kind of pioneers, if you will, and Crow 777 shortly following them took a lot of the heat, right, in trying to tell other people. And then again, from my perspective, I have drawn most of the people who follow me are already deeply blue pilled. They're into it, and they have questions like I do about not only what makes the difference, but how can we identify people who might be more open to it, and can we create a deprogramming script, right? And that's kind of what I'm about. And then secondarily, I think, and close to it, is the fact that so many people feel isolated and alone, and like they can't talk to people, right? And as a way to help deepen a sense of community among these people, to understand that we may be far flung, but we're very similar in so many ways. That's been my observation as I've done this process. So again, I may be, like I said, accused of preaching to the choir a bit, but irrespective of that, again, I gotta certainly give mad props and respect for your willingness and ability to relate to people such, and again, at your age, that you're, I mean, dude, 15 in a year. I mean, I know people who would, they'd be given a left nut for that, for those kind of numbers, right? They'd take even one, right, if it was their spouse, maybe, right, or something like that. What do you think the secret to your success is?
Um, I just have to say that it has to be like the Emerald Tablet, or like just understanding the seven hermetic principles, and like understanding like the pattern to life, kind of, because you kind of see it, and then you kind of, I don't know, you just, when you see the pattern and you know those seven laws, and then you reflect on your life, you just really, you just change a lot of things around. Like when you go through the reprogramming process, and then you're like, wow, and then you reprogram, you start talking to others, because like I said, I always wanted to be a teacher. And once I found this, I was really, really adamant about it. I really believed it, and it really showed benefits. So I was like, man, this is what, I feel like that is really one of the things that really put me on. And me being young, I feel like I said, my old soul, a lot of the things that I felt like I've been here before, or like when I was in school, I felt like I already knew the knowledge. We can get into ideas like gene is the root word of genius. So the information is already in your genes. So I felt like I was already getting all of this stuff through me. And I just, but I didn't always apply myself until I found something that was worth applying myself for. And man,
Well,
the people that,
I'm certainly glad you chose this, right? And as well as to teach, you certainly have. I've taught before. I love teaching as well, and you certainly have, the right personality, I think, for it. You have the right disposition, and you communicate complex ideas clearly. So again, I think I can say thanks from all of us that you've chosen this as your discipline of teaching.
yeah, I appreciate that. And I do kind of like aim towards like the millennials, because I'm a millennial, I guess is what they call us. And I do aim towards them, but I do try to keep it respectful and general enough to really just keep everybody informed. And just the stuff that I've seen, I'm just sharing my experience with folks. And man,
So
people
far,
like you,
yeah. So far,
when I
you
heard you for the first time, bro, I was like, man, this guy's This guy, I got to get in the room with this guy.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And again, I'd love to, share a beer or a meal, and just, again, spend time in the same space. I think the energy transfer would be spectacular. And I keep thinking about how much I'd love to have all the people who are, the usual suspects who are here in the chat virtually. If we were all in the same room together, it would likely explode.
Oh yeah.
To forget about it, bada bing over here, right?
Big Papa, Big Papa.
Exactly. So, what do you think? Emerald tablets, you mentioned that. What do you think are some of the better topics that you've seen people go, that's interesting, right? Because I mean, to me, that's a measure of success. Is what for me when I get people asking me questions about things like, what do you think about? I'm like, okay, from the normies, they've been thinking about it and they're looking for some information. And I have my list of things. Like if somebody said, well, explain why you have these views, I could start them off in certain ways. And these are areas that I've mentioned before, and we'll talk about more later. But what I call low emotional impact, high proximity. So in other words, it's far enough away from them, it's distance enough that it doesn't really trigger them. Right, I'm looking for things that aren't, high proximal things that are going to
Yeah.
cause an emotional reaction, so they can't think. Right, that's the last thing I want. What I want is a rational, objective, sort of almost compartmentalized thought process. And then once it clicks, the penny drops, then they can get emotionally connected. And so I have a list of those things that I could probably start with. What's your top three that you think you have the best success in getting people to go?
Well, one of the things is always the food because everybody now knows that the food thing is kind of like fishy. So when I drop little
And
random facts,
everybody eats, right?
right?
Yeah.
Everybody eats. Another thing is like you hit it on the head when you said about low triggering things because you don't want to always attack people. So a lot of those topics are more spiritual topics, and one of them is like the spiritual causes of diseases or like the stress related causes of diseases list that I have, and
And that's
that thing that I
not only a huge list, but again, that's one that most people are unaware of, and in fact has been proven over and over again medically, and in laboratory settings, is that most, and I think the number, again, I want to do a rectal extraction here and pull it out of my butt, but as I recall, it was more than 70% of chronic illness, which requires hospitalization, is a result of some sort of internalized trauma and emotional situation that's causing the long-term release of cortisol and a number. It's basically endocrine related, and so it's basically, when you get down to it, bitterness and unforgiveness is what's causing long-term disease. Ultimately, it's emotional issues, psychosomatic, if you will, but that's been proven over and over again. So the connection between food and our thoughts and our health is a huge one, and I think people can prove that out pretty quickly. So you've got the food issue and GMO, and okay, that's a good one. What else for you?
the food issue, and then the thoughts causing the diseases is the second one, and then the third one, uh, it's probably just the I'd have to say the seven laws
Yeah.
that I touch on. People love that because I really go in depth. Like when I talk about like the law of rhythm, for instance, I tell about everybody has their swing, everybody has their place, and you can be positive or negative type of person. Your attitude is your level on this timeline. So, the swing positive is like, let's say +3, and the swing negative is -3. So I use the moon, for instance. When the moon is getting big or waxing, I use that +2 weeks for the positive swing. And then when it's getting smaller, that's when I say it's the negative swing. So normally, good things happen during 2 weeks. And then during the next 2 weeks, it's like, oh, damn, things are starting to hit the fan. So what I start to get to describe is you have to place an anchor, when you know your shift. Like everybody's shift is different, like the rhythm is different. So when you know your shift, you gotta like place your anchor, and then once you go down that swing, just take it and just remember the happiest moment from that previous 2 weeks, and then when you come back on your swing, it's nice because you don't let that stuff keep you down. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You don't, you
No,
don't, because you don't want to lose your number on that timeline. You know what I mean? If you're a positive person, you swing up, you go up to 9, let's say, or you swing down, you go down to 4. But if you're a negative person, you start off at 0. You go down, you're gonna be in the negatives, and then it's kind of more drastic. And
absolutely.
people love that.
Do you can you list can you rattle off the seven laws real quick and just tell us what those are?
Yeah, so there's many 7 different things. So the 7 hermetic principles will be the law of mentalism, the law of rhythm, the law of correspondence, cause and effects, vibration, gender, and polarity.
Yep.
Now, now, are those the ones you're familiar
Yeah,
with?
yeah, exactly. No, you hit them right. I just if people weren't familiar with that, right? The seven hermetic principles, and each one goes on so deep. We would spend an hour on each on each of the seven. I think we could do a series, like probably Crow has done as well. I'm sure Rose 777, if she's still in the chat, she could tell us exactly what episode to look for at Crow 777 because they've covered so much of these topics. But yeah, that's certainly yeah, those seven hermetic principles are things again that you can see in real life, right? They manifest right away, and people
Yeah.
it's hard to question what you see for yourself, like the rice experiment, right? That show the power of intention. You can see that right before your very eyes, and it's hard to deny that. I see that some people occasionally still do, right? They just refuse to see, and they blind themselves. And to those people, again, I would say that that's a good place to let it go, right? You don't want to get frustrated. And I hate to see that people get angry and frustrated. But I understand, right? I understand their experience when they're trying to raise awareness, especially those who are close to them. And it is frustrating beyond belief when they not only don't see, but won't see. Right, and they, you can see that they're putting up barriers to that.
Yep.
Would you
That
have any advice for those people who have very close people to them, right, like significant other or family members who maybe not just don't listen, but actually mock and denigrate, right? What would be your advice to them?
well, what I do is I kind of get in their circle. You know what I mean? I get a couple of their friends that they're mutual friends with to agree with what's going on and show them that that type of perspective in reality is real. And, whether it's virtual or, in real life, if you're in real life trying to get your friend to convince something, the best way to do that is convince, your friend's girlfriend or boyfriend or somebody close to
Somebody
them.
close, yeah.
Yeah, and or you just really, I mean, you just step back from it because there's a detachment place of it when you're doing these manifestations, and people forget about that. When you're casting your spell, you literally have to detach and don't think about it no more. You don't want to overwater the pot, or you don't want to put a different, food in the water and water the pot again, because now you just messed up the whole mixture.
Well, here's
And
here's
people,
one that I've noticed, and perhaps can confirm this in your own experience. Is for me one of the most certain ways that I can at least water the seeds that I've planted is by what they would say walk in the walk is that when they see that, for example, during this latest scare, because they're trying to put fear into you and they use fear to control, I am not at all afraid, right? Scripture says the wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion, right? And certainly they hey, Missouri Bear, certainly they see that in me, is that I'm not afraid. I carry myself such that they see that I manifest things and things turn out those ways. I'm not again fearful. I'm not swayed easily, but I'm neither am I quick to judge or so they see things that they like, and I can
yeah,
definitely tell that you're a guy who comports yourself with a sense of composure, right? And you know what you're about, and you're seeking still, but you know what you're about. Would your experience confirm that?
yeah, absolutely. You have to definitely remain firm on your beliefs, because that gets back into what we were talking about earlier. You can get ran over. Like, if you're not confident with what you're speaking about. And that's the craziest thing about the internet and this little artificial stuff too. You can sort of sense people through it, which is weird because people can get their, you can sense, you can feel out people, and people, when they respect that and they sniff that out, they're like, okay, well, maybe he's serious. But if you're not delivering the message right, if you coming off as, soft, then they're gonna run you over, and it's not gonna get delivered correctly. So I've
Yeah.
seen that.
No, I totally get that. And thank you, Informally Hip. You're always so on it, man. She's amazing. Today's guest is Deezy. You probably know him on Facebook as Cordeezy Tom from the St. Paul, Minneapolis area, the Twin Cities. Just 27. And he's been planting all kinds of seeds in all kinds of communities, and he gets around. And he's got a great view on things, and I wanted him to share some of his views today. And again, I had questions clearly, and I couldn't thank you enough for again you're just candid and transparent, and this is one of the things that again I find so not only fascinating, but so rewarding about doing this process of the Awakening report, or the Awakening project rather, where I'm having people send in stuff. If you haven't yet, or if you're not familiar with it, you can go back to the first couple episodes of this podcast. And in fact, you could go to Secrets of Saturn channel and look at for the January 1st of this year was where I first announced it. The idea that there are, because of some hypothesis that I had about the way the system works to hypnotize people, if you will, that these things appeared to be the product of post-hypnotic suggestion. And they're using the power of suggestion to cause people to believe things that otherwise we would say aren't true. They are under a spell. And there are many indications of that, especially when you try to tell them the truth and you can see their eyes glaze over. And when they become triggered, moreover, the veins in their forehead start throbbing. You can see that their heart rate is increasing. And they will go through any effort to deny what's right in front of them. And to me, this was clearly indicative of, again, this is not an organic process. This is an artificially created construct. And so, again, my view was that we can probably identify not only some of the means that they use, but there's a Pareto distribution that says that certain people are more difficult. They don't simply accept what they're told, and so they are less susceptible to the power of suggestion. They would be the people that the stage hypnotist would not call on stage, right? They're not going to dance around like a chicken or put a mask on like a sheep. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Right? But trying to identify what these characteristics are. And I had some hypothesis, and this has been proven to have proof of concept, and also some surprises. That it's not a matter just of intelligence. It's not an IQ thing. IQ tests really, they measure certain aspects of neuroplasticity and problem solving and pattern recognition. That does carry through in some ways to kinds of intelligence, but certainly doesn't relate to emotional intelligence. Certainly doesn't account for what we would call common sense or street smarts. It's just a kind. It's one very narrow aspect. So those who test high on it, yeah, they seem to be brighter. They learn quickly, and they have good recall. But that doesn't necessarily account for a bunch of other things. And so, again, my view is to try to better understand that and to share those findings with people. And ultimately, if we can, to try to find a way to do a deprogramming script, right? Because what we see is cult-like behavior, and that has to do with linguistic programming. It has to do with mind control in, right now, I would say full-scale and full-spectrum mind control through a variety of media, post-hypnotic suggestion, all kinds of stuff, right? What are some of the things, Deezy, that you see in terms of the way people are influenced? We've talked about this along the way, music and that sort of things, but what other things do you see people become influenced by that feeds into this kind of hypnosis?
Well, one thing that's really prevalent is like there's like an artificial blanket that's covering over like the world. Like everything is becoming for sale, or basically. So what I see this virtual reality push is, I feel like people are seeing it as a way to redefine themselves, and they find it more appealing because that's why as much as I hammer the head on them with the deception, I always try to proffer things to remedy it, because I don't want people to feel like left out and there's nothing else to do. So that's why I go so hard with the law of attraction. But the fact of the matter is, there's a synthetic law of attraction that's happening now. That's why when we see targeted ads, and that's why all of this massive data collection. So I'm literally at war with like this this technology that is giving people like the quick cheat code of like the instant gratification, but when you want to teach them how to do it, it's a whole thing. Like people would rather buy it than learn for themselves, right? So it's that whole thing, and it's such on a massive spiritual scale that it's saddening to me. Like it hurts because it's people have their own, the philosopher's stone, and people like the inner work, but all of this is being substituted. People trying to work on like being living forever when this type of stuff is done in alchemical text. Like it's crazy to me, and I know that it's all for control. And I'm just trying to really reclaim give people their control back. So that's kind of what that artificial blanket is
Yeah.
like. Really, I've been trying to dissect that a lot.
Man, good man. That's again, I love your calculated approach, right? And that you kind of cover the spectrum, both from the emotional aspect, because again, that's how people really ultimately make choices. They feed the information, but the decision itself is almost always an emotional one, right? Sometimes that's all they have to back it up, but even if it's a logical decision, the decision itself is usually emotional. So you cover all the angles from the emotion to the intellectual side and the informational side. I am again delighted to see the wide diversity of approach that you're using, as well as the diversity of people that you're attracting, and get to see what you're all about. Right now, insofar as I know, you've got the Facebook page as your primary means of communication. Do you have are you doing a podcast? Do you have plans to? You going to do you have a YouTube channel? What are ways that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I do plan on making a podcast. My YouTube channel is up, but I don't have any videos on it. I believe it's DZFMFP um, on
Yeah,
YouTube, but I don't have any content on that yet.
DZFMFP. Spam that in the chat. At least I can put that there. I don't have the precise link, but I did find it when I was looking for you. So you can find him. In fact, he's easier to find than I am. When you look for
Imagine that.
unintended consequences, just about anywhere, you get all kinds of things because it's a fairly used phrase. But in any case, it's all right. So I put up your Facebook contact information. So Cordeezy Tom, as well as a direct link there. So you're going to do a podcast coming up. I know that you were on Rogue Ways. Was it just yesterday?
Yeah, it was on Rogue Ways on Friday
Yeah,
or
yesterday.
Thursday.
Okay, Thursday. All right. So Thursday, that'd be the 18th of June, since this is going to be available for a while. If you want to go back and look at that, I'll also find that and put the link in it, as well as I'll put it as one of the closing screen links, so you can go directly to see that interview. Great stuff there. And again, she's a great interviewer and really helps get people talking about themselves. Is there other places that you've been that we could find you, or you have anything else coming up?
Yeah, shout out to Lindsay for that Rogue Ways. But I did a feature also on the Walk in Wisdom YouTube channel from it's on social engineering.
Okay.
But I don't know if I think it's just plain Walk in Wisdom from my buddy Joseph's website
And if you
or
can, yeah, and if you
YouTube.
can get me the link to that in the next couple of days, just email that to me, and I'll include that in the description as well. So people, if you don't see it right away, you can come back and find it. I usually edit these things afterwards because I find information out, right, and add it so people can link to it later. And then, is there other things upcoming? Any guest spots anywhere?
Well, other than all my virtual stuff, I'm a board member for this community organization called St. Tool, which we help with wage theft laws and labor
Can you spell
enforcement,
that for me?
basically.
Can you spell that for me?
CTUL.
Catul. Okay.
Yeah, which it's the acronym is in Spanish, but what it is the Center for Workers United in Struggle. Basically, is what it says in English. And if
Sounds
there's
like
people that
communist,
work,
dude. That sounds
What's
communist, man. What the hell? Are you a
that?
pinko comedy? God damn it! You got me.
The color's red too. The color's red
Oh
too, bro.
shit, son. Damn, you got me doing an interview with a commie. God dang it.
Man,
Yeah,
that's
you know how people are, baby.
yeah. They're all over it. I had to give them that. They're all over it. But no, I've really been doing like some live. I've been trying to. I have been putting more live stuff in action and really been touching the community. And we just did this event where, like I just said, where George Floyd incident, and which was pretty dope. We had over 100 people, had a little march, and been doing some activist work in the community, which is good. And I kind of get to see where people's heads is at and sprinkle a little seeds to the leaders that are out there doing their stuff too, which I like.
Awesome. Well, very, very cool. Deezy, I really, again, can't thank you enough for spending the time with me this morning. And I know you have a really busy schedule, but this has been just fascinating and enlightening for me. You've answered, again, questions for me that I didn't know, and again, are sometimes difficult question to ask because people can get kind of tense around those things. And I love that you're not right. You know exactly who you are and what you're about, and that's just something I love about you and why I wanted to have you here. I may try to sneak you in. I don't know what your schedule's like, but if you ever have a minute, you could sneak in for a few minutes on the Poppycock Report with Rose 777 and I. Would love to have you come there so people can get to know you better and kind of get you out there. Because again, I think that people ought to get to know you. You've got some great views and a wide variety of things that you can cover. And if people sometimes maybe struggle themselves about how to explain these things to friends, sometimes people won't hear it from a family member or somebody they know directly, but they'll take it from a third party, right?
Yeah.
And Deezy is a great resource for that, right? So we can sometimes link to Crow 777 if people, you think that they might resonate with that. But if you think somebody might resonate with the way Deezy speaks, and again, he's just, as you can tell already, super well-spoken. He's really got, when I was a kid, I told my dad I was going to start a business called Consolidated Feces because we got our shit together. And you certainly do have your poo-poo in one spot, my man. That's just, again, delighted to have you here. If you got any parting shots that you want to give to people?
Man, big shout out to you, Baldini, man. Big shout out to Rose 777. Big shout out to everybody from Rose Sanchez, Flat Power. Shout out to my whole Facebook family. I love everybody that's here in the audience today too, man. Thank you guys.
And that is,
And
one of the things that I see again, and why I'm so tickled with this, this group of people in this community is love is the central thing we got going on. And again, from my perspective and a spiritual aspect, I see that the opposite side, the opposite of love is not hatred, but fear. And fear is what
yeah,
causes so much division, both within our group and again, between cultures. I see racism as often the result of fear. When you fear what you don't know, and if people are different than you or you're afraid they might have power over you. And this is what I mentioned earlier, that I see that institutional racism, if you will, or the oppression of specific cultures, to me appears to be specifically the ones that they're the most afraid of, that have something to bring that could bring them down. And so they're very much against it. And so it's often given me a great deal of respect, more so for the people that are sometimes the most denigrated because they have the most to offer, right? So,
yeah,
so
that's no doubt. Well said.
I find,
Yeah.
that some of the wisest people that I've ever met are, like homeless people because they see every fucking thing, right? I mean, they see
Yeah.
everything. And some are very observant, right? Just, so if we are quick to judge, or prejudge others based by what we don't know, right? Or what we think we know mistakenly, and we have a misapprehension about people from a different part of the world or a different part of the city even, or a different culture than us. Just like everything else, whether now you've learned to question not just authority, right, but you learn to question history, question the shape of the earth, question everything you were told, and explore your own beliefs deeply. And if you believe that somehow you were better than some other person because of culture or race, hair color, hairstyle, skin level. You know, one of the things I got to tell you, Deezy, one of the things that blew my fucking mind. I was in my early 20s. I was working for the Tandy Corporation, and there was 3 or 4 people in my office who were black, and I was absolutely astounded to hear them talking about other black people, and they were so focused on subtleties of skin tone, right? And how much better they thought people with lighter skin, black people, no, forget white,
Yeah.
but people of black skin with lighter skin, and I know that historically this was very much true in the Caribbean islands, that
Oh
people
yeah.
that people who had lighter skin were treated better, and it was, oh my, I just couldn't believe it. It was like the not only the irony of it, but really, like you think that the color of the skin has anything to do with the content of character at all? And you're talking, you're coming from a place of being in this specific culture that is oppressed for that very reason. Like, what the fuck, man?
It's totally crazy, man. And the thing is, it's deep because it goes back to like Egypt. They feel like it was like the mulattoes are the ones that, had interracial relationships were the ones that eventually led to Egypt's fall. So they kind of like black people be hating on lighter skinned people or vice versa. It's a whole thing.
It's
Like there's a
weird to me, man. It is weird, right? Like, I mean, I remember when I was young, because I am very melanin challenged. I mean, like literally, I have a lack of pigmentation such that I'm almost albino, right? So I mean, very very pale, very blonde everywhere. Like all my hair is. My wife jokes that there ain't something right about me because I got blonde butthole hair. I know more than you needed to know, bro. Especially keeping in mind that I am naked right now. Anyway, I know this will make you uncomfortable, but that's why I don't use a camera. That's one of the reasons. But in any case, but again, it's just really odd to me. Like I remember being jealous of people in school who could get a tan because I couldn't go outside without getting a terrible, like sometimes second degree burns with blisters, and I mean it put me at a great risk. When I would visit my grandmother in New Mexico, I literally couldn't be outside for more than 10 minutes and I would be just toast. And so I've grown up being very sensitive to sun, but I was, jealous of people who like literally I went to a dermatologist to try to take pills, right, to grow more pigmentation. It's crazy shit, right? But I was jealous of people who had darker skin than me. I thought it was, terrible. So it's just, again, it's just a weird thing to me. I know there are people who do, right? Clearly, because
right.
I've seen it firsthand, but it's just to me, again, it's like judging people on their height. And again, I know that's a thing too. People who are taller make more money in the corporate world. But it's just so weird to me. Like, that's just a weird way to judge people. It seems strange. I mean, again, I mean
Absolutely.
to blah, 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 but I always find it weird, right? Like people identify themselves. Their whole identity is by what they do in the bedroom, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, so I eat ass. Does that make me Baldini the ass? I mean, whatever. It's like, why would that be the first thing you'd want to tell somebody about yourself, right? It's like,
Exactly.
I mean, I suppose it's interesting or whatever, but I don't care to be identified by that. I want to be identified by the kind of person that I am, right? And how I treat others and how I relate to the world around me. Not what I do under the covers, not the color of my skin, not the color of my eyes, right? Not even my job or what I do for money, because it's, that's just, it's just weird to
Nobody
me.
likes labels are for soup cans, like you
Man,
said.
exactly, right? It just seems so strange to me that that's what people see and that's what they look for. And I know we've been taught that way, but God, it just seems so fucking bizarre, man. It's bizarre land. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, right? That is
You
what
know the
people.
programming. You know the program is complete when everything you know is wrong,
Yep.
basically. Right? That's where we're at.
No, man, I feel you, and I just, but as I said, and then again, people who looking to be offended, right, about different things and choosing things that people can't do anything about, right? No, people
Right.
can't do anything about the color of their skin. I mean, go get a tan or go get a bleaching, but come on. Yeah, but it's like you can't do anything about that, right? So why would I mean? Is
So
that
there is a
the
thing
only?
too.
No, go
Like
ahead.
with entertainment, like for black people, they make it seem like lighter skinned females are better than darker skinned females, right? So they always show lighter skinned females, and then they always when they show a darker skinned female, she gets the tougher roles, or she's the gangster girl, and that whole thing. So there's a social engineering aspect to it a little bit lately
Yeah, it
with the
totally is.
entertainment, which is funny.
Yeah, I just people are weird, to me. I mean, I'm fascinated by them, and much of it, I love them, right? But it also, the fact that I do care so much about people makes me not want to interact with them anymore because people are behaving in such a hideous and horrendous fashion. It hurts me so deeply to see, right, that I've become something of a hermit these days, and primarily deal with people this way, right? This is the most fulfillment I get, is doing these podcasts and hanging out with this community. Is some of the best fulfillment that I get, other than spending time with my wife. And again, in that aspect, we don't agree on everything. She doesn't buy into all my tinfoil stuff, although over time, right, she's looked at it and said, yeah, crazy enough, some of that shit. And, her views have shifted a good deal, right? So, but here's the thing is that we don't make fun of each other. We don't think each other is stupid. I accept that she sees things differently because that's her experience, right? And she sees it that way. And it's not going to help me to, even if I won the argument, right? That's not going to help the relationship any. It doesn't make
Nope.
sense to me to make fun of people.
That because
Because
at that point it was just an argument, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
even after it gets diffused, they don't even want to use the information anymore. Because after the whole little bout that you guys just had, like that's crazy, and that's another thing that kind of draws people away from certain things when we do things that way. So
yeah,
we gotta be
yeah.
on our.
There's a certain show who will remain nameless, but I'll let you know what it is. There's a certain show that has a particular argumentative style dealing with the nature of Earth, who is run by an English bloke whose last name has to do with trees. Uh, and he and his paddle, again, I understand how after being yelled at and called names and all that stuff, how you kind of want to push back, right? But I find it terribly immature that they feel like when they win they have to do the same thing in return. It's like, I think it weakens your message, right? It seems very short-sighted and frankly childish to me. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
I don't want to make enemies, but I'm just saying I wouldn't do it.
yeah, and that's funny that you say that too, because it's like when we get into alchemy, in the first stage of alchemy being like calcination, which is it seems like the most violent of the processes. People think that their ego is just going to be gone in that first violent step, but at the same time, yes, it does become smaller, but it becomes more concentrated at the same time. Like there's less of it, but it's concentrated now.
And
So you
focused.
still got,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so again, as I was saying, like I can tell that you're the kind of guy like I am. My wife says I read cop, and I'm like, oh shit, that's the last thing I want because I'm not that. But what
that
she means is that, right, I carry myself in a way that is self confident, but I'm not overbearing like they are, right? So I don't read douchebag, but I do. Yeah, I'm not a soft target. I'll say that, right? People, I got in trouble at one job that I did because we would often go out and the owner, it was a family owned business, and so every time we'd go out and meet new people on this job, well, I'll say it was a high level audio video corporate AV thing, right? So we'd go out and do shows for people. And when we would show up on the job site, the people, who had never met us, instantly thought that I was the boss, and they'd always come introduce themselves to me. And so the guy who was with the owner of the business got pissed, and over, because it would happen like all the time. And to where like his reaction was to like walk up and introduce himself as the owner of the company so that it wouldn't happen. And it made everybody else on our crew just, they laughed. And so he continually belittled himself in front of the crew by having to do that because it bothered him so much. It's funny, they just
man.
would just instinctively go, oh, this guy knows what he's doing, right? So they'd come up to me and that would just piss him off. It's just funny because people are silly that way. Yeah, so again, I can tell that you're the kind of guy, carries himself not necessarily with authority, but certainly, you're comfortable in your own skin, whatever color that is, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yep. And so you carry yourself well. Like I said, I can tell just from the way you talk that you're the kind of guy who's going to look people in the eye, and they're going to know
That
that you know.
Yeah, and that gets into the Sudoku effect. You know what I mean? Like I feel like everybody has their number, and once you find your number, like your inner calling, then you start to find your place in your family relationship or your work environment, and every system needs your number. Is looking for your number, and as quick as you find your number, you can find your place in the Sudoku thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's important. And since the social engineering is the homogenization of that, it's funny that everybody's trying to be, a different number than they really are.
Yep. Or in any way different, right? And that was, I know I've expressed this before that during my own process of, at least self growth and learning to be completely transparent, it was terrifying for me at first because, I wasn't, I wouldn't lie, but certainly we have a way that we want to present ourselves in the best possible light, and we all know where our holes are, right? And we want to keep people away from that. And learning to be completely transparent was at first terrifying because I know that those holes are there. But after a while, not only do those holes get filled in, but being transparent and vulnerable, right? It allows people to get closer, and so that improves the relationship. Right. So once you get that ground covered and can be who you are and who you are to others, I think that tends to draw people as well, and that gives you the opportunity to speak to them and to speak to them about things that they might not previously have been comfortable with. And certainly, the topics that we talk about are those topics specifically, right, that people are not comfortable with because it changes ultimately their entire worldview, right? It's a paradigm shift that everything you thought you knew was wrong.
Exactly.
All,
Exactly.
all right, man. So we've been here. I keep going longer and longer, but man, it's been a fascinating journey talking about your own awakening process and what you're doing to help others wake up. So right now, as I said, what I'm going to do. So is anybody got any last minute questions for Deezy before we go? There's a few second delay here. I just want to see if anybody's got anything last minute there. You've given parting shots. As I said before, because of the crazy audio thing, what I'm going to do, Deezy, at the end, I'll drop the call to play the outro music, then I'll just get right back with you for a little wrap up and debriefing. I mean, I'm not wearing briefs right now, but anyway. All right.
Yeah, that's fucking funny.
I
as
know,
hell,
man. Sorry to leave you with that. You want to gouge out your eyes with a rusty fork. I know it.
No, you just got all the puns for it, which is just hilarious. So they just keep coming.
Yeah, man. At this age, the jokes aren't going to get any better, right? I mean, I keep warning people. It doesn't make it stop. They're not going to stop, but they're not going to get any better either. It looks like everybody's content just to wave and again, thank you for being here. I saw a ton of stuff in the chat about like, dude, you're hitting it out of the park, man. You are a rock star. And I certainly, I know I probably speak for everybody that when I say that we definitely look forward to hearing the content that you create and the way, I mean, again, you cover so many topics that it's almost never ending. The list you sent me this morning, just that list is, I mean, God, we could go forever just on that one topic, man. So, man, that's, again, you definitely got some job security when it comes to teaching the world about the things that you know. And again, I love that you remain open-minded, right? And you find other sources of information and continue to grow and don't stop and go, okay, I got it. But just continue to go and grow. And so I truly love that. Okay, so thanks again, Deezy, for being with us. And I'm sure we'll have you back again soon because there's a ton more that I would have loved to get to. So with that, again, thanks guys for joining us again today. Just want to remind you, if you have not already, I'm so close to that 1,000 mark, that unlock that achievement thing at 1,000 subscribers. If you haven't already subscribed, please do ring the bell. And if you don't, like what you hear, just ignore it. Right? But from time to time, I will occasionally do music streams, just some live impromptu stuff, largely because people have asked me to. Also, because I'm super rusty and I haven't played music for a very long time, and so as a result, I got to kind of get the rust out and put some WD-40 on it. So having a little bit of an audience sometimes help, but I know people have asked, do you do a CD of that? And again, it's not really songs. I'm just kind of improvising and playing through some chords. But it is what I do, kind of cathartic and as a means of relaxation. And some people have asked about it. So if you want to, you pick those up, you can see those as noodling. That's what I call it, just kind of noodling. So anyway, there's that. Thanks again to everybody who helped contribute to me getting a new computer. I did pick it up this week. So I talked about that earlier. If you missed that, just go back and look at early in the show during housekeeping. I just kind of mentioned the specs on that thing. Got to get it set up. And hopefully we'll be able to get started doing more things there. If you want to continue to contribute, of course, you can just hit paypal.me/greatbaldini. Venmo, I think, is the great Baldini, P.O. Box 2248, Linwood, Washington, 98036. I'm not just begging for money, but also if you just want to send me a note, I love getting letters, cards, letters, that sort of thing. If you want to join the Awakening Project or just contact me at all, unintended.consequences3@gmail.com, unintended.consequences3@gmail.com. If you're interested in the Awakening Project, or if you'd like a free I do not consent sticker, let me know that. So far, I think everybody who's asked for one, all of them have gone out. Three batches of those have gone out so far. So, let me know about that. Join me tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Pacific and 10 a.m. Eastern time. I'll do a brief Sola Scriptura, just solo, because Wayne can't join me until tomorrow evening. The actual episode for Sola Scriptura, episode 2, comes at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow with Wayne McCroy of Alchemical Tech Revolution and SOS, which is Secrets of Saturn, every Wednesday. And you can often find me joining them as well on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 6 a.m., I join Rose 777 at her channel, Rose 777, on YouTube, as well as often she goes live on Facebook. And you can catch it there in the Crow 777 community or Birds of a Feather. And you can find me there on Facebook, Tarjay Baldini. On Facebook, you can kind of catch up with me there as well. I don't log in that much. I don't spend a lot of time there, but I usually you can find me there as well. So anyway, that's, I think, all the places you can find us. So again, Tuesday and Thursday morning, the Poppycock Report with Rose 777. And that's always a good time. We take a lighthearted look at the poppycock around us, looking at news and things going on. But it's a little more lighthearted, and grab your cup of coffee and join us for that. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. This has become the highlight of my week. And again, I just can't thank you guys enough for the time that we get to spend together. So with that, I will say good morning, and I'll play a little music on the way out. A little repeat of some stuff from a band I had called Altered, but really this is from Joe Ray and I. You will often find him in the chat. A longtime songwriting partner. We wrote these songs in the late 80s through mid 90s. This one, what am I going to play here? I had that. Let's see what I got here. What am I looking at here? I don't even know what this is. I think this one is called Still. Oh, wait. Let's see. That's not going to work. So I got to do that, and this, I think, is what I need to do. And then, oh, there we go. Okay, guys, take care. Have a great day. I will see you again tomorrow or next week or whenever you come back and see us. Thanks again.